Recognized by many players as the greatest player of all time, chosen 6 times as the most valuable player in the National Basketball Association, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is also one of the most visible Muslims in the American public arena. The 2.18 meters tall Harlem native, born Ferdinand Louis Alcindor, debuted for UCLA before entering the National Basketball Association with the Milwaukee Bucks in 1969. Alcindor later went on to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. He was so dominant in college basketball that the dunk, at which he excelled, was formally banned from intercollegiate sport. As a result, Lou Alcindor developed the shot for which he is personally most famous, the skyhook, considered the shot that changed basketball, and with which he scored more than 38,000 points in regular season NBA games. When Milwaukee won the NBA title in 1970-71, Alcindor, who was already Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was hailed the king of basketball. Lou Alcindor first learned about Islam from Hamas Abdul Khalis, a former jazz drummer. According to his own testimony, he was brought up to take authorities seriously, whether they were nuns, teachers or coaches, and in that spirit he followed Abdul Khalis's teachings carefully. It was he who gave Alcindor the name Abdul Kareem, later changed to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, literally, the Noble One, servant of the Almighty. Soon, however, he decided to extend Abdul Khalis's teachings with his own study of the Quran, for which he decided to learn basic Arabic. In 1973 he traveled to Libya and Saudi Arabia to gain a better understanding of the language and learn about Islam in some of its native contexts. Abdul-Jabbar was not interested in making the kind of public statement about his Islam that Muhammad Ali made in his opposition to the Vietnam War, wanting only to identify himself simply as an African American who was also a Muslim. He clearly stated that his name Alcindor was a slave name, literally that of the slave trader who took his family from West Africa to the Dominican Republic or Trinidad, from where they were taken to America. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar affirms his identity as a Sunni Muslim. He professes a strong belief in what he calls the Supreme Being and is clear in his understanding that Muhammad is his prophet and the Quran the final revelation. For his part, Kareem accepts his responsibility to live as good an Islamic life as possible, recognizing that Islam is capable of meeting the demands of being a professional athlete in America. Excerpts from his book, Kareem. The following are excerpts from the second book he wrote about his basketball career, Kareem, published in 1990. 1. Recounting his reasons for being drawn to Islam. Growing up in America, I eventually discovered that, emotionally, spiritually, I couldn't be racist. As I got older, I gradually came to believe that black was better or worse. The black man who influenced me most profoundly was Malcolm X. I read Muhammad Speaks, the newspaper of black Muslims, but even in the early 60s, his racism was unacceptable to me. I had the same hostility as white racism, and however great my anger and resentment, I understood that hatred can do very little to change things. It's just a continuous negative spiral that feeds on itself. And who needs that? Malcolm X was different. He took a trip to Mecca and realized that Islam embraced people of all colors. He was assassinated in 1965, and although I didn't know much about him at the time, his death touched me deeply because I knew he talked about black pride, about self-help and uplifting ourselves. And I liked his non-subservient attitude. Malcolm X's autobiography came out in 1966, when I was a freshman at UCLA, and I read it before my 19th birthday. It made a huge impression on me, more than any book I'd ever read, totally transforming me. I began to look at things differently, instead of accepting the dominant point of view. Malcolm opened the door to real cooperation between races, not just the superficial, paternalistic stuff. He talked about real people doing real things, Black pride and Islam. I latched onto that, and I never had to look back. Interview with Talk Asia, 2, SG, 3. Before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar there was Lou Alcindor. He says it was a very profound spiritual decision. Tell me a bit about your own personal journey, from Lou Alcindor to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Is there still a bit of Lou Alcindor in you today? Ka, 4. Well, you know I'm who I was when I started my life. I'm still my parents' son, I'm still. My cousins are still the same, I'm still me. But I made a choice. SG. Do you feel different? Is it a different feeling when you adopt a different name, a different persona? I really don't think so. I think it's more to do with evolution. I evolved into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I have no regrets about who I was, but this is who I am now. SG. In the spiritual journey, how